So welcome everybody. It's great to be here with this distinguished panel. We're going to be talking today about a topic that should be of interest to everybody, which is really how do you connect and sell to the next generation of skilled tradespeople and customers for whom you make all of these great products. And recently we announced a partnership with NEMA related to the Build America, Buy America, Make It in America initiative. And we're going to talk about how not only is this trend towards making things in America and certifying important, but also being able to really connect the dots all the way through to the next generation of customers who buy these products. So this is really an important moment for manufacturers. It's estimated over the next 5 to 10 years that about half of the customer base will retire. It's non-negotiable. These are backs and knees that are giving out in the field, basically. It's also estimated that about 40% of construction labor is actually wasted time. And a big part of that wasted time is people trying to get the stuff they need to do their work. And so with this new generation of workforce coming along, there's an imperative, I call it the jump ball for market share now among manufacturers and distributors. There's a reshuffling of preference and of priorities in the workforce. So we have a great panel today. We're going to talk about, how is this playing out at different levels of the ecosystem? How do manufacturers start to adapt to this? How are the changing expectations of buyers, folks like Steve, actually creating an imperative for people to rethink how they engage with their customers? We'll be talking with Patrick from IDEA about the critical role that data plays in accelerating change and accelerating productivity. And Maddie's going to be talking about workforce development and as well as how agentic AI is starting to really disrupt the markets that we're in. So TradeHounds is the largest marketplace in the United States for skilled tradespeople. We have almost 450,000 users now. They cut across contractors of all different sizes. About half of them are in the MEP space. 92% of them say that they are more likely to buy products if they're made in America, but they have to know that. And so one of the critical challenges is not only to certify through the BUBA program, but also to make sure that you're discoverable as American-made product. As I mentioned, over 440,000 users. The demographics are cutting across MEP broadly, lots of other trades. Most important number, over $30 billion is currently being spent by our users. So this is, as we're cycling out a generation of contractors and workers, a new inbound generation is spending that money, and about 75% of our users actually have purchasing authority, either direct or indirect through requisitioning. About 70% of them say that they're more likely to buy product if they have seen it on the TradeHounds app. And so this is becoming one of those threshold moments for this new generation in terms of how we actually engage and make ourselves discoverable. How many of you have gone through a long journey today trying to make sure you have SEO, search engine optimization, for your products? Raise your hand. I think that's been the task for the last 10 to 20 years is really SEO. How many of you are now starting to use ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, other tools to be able to answer questions? How many of you have optimized your product's discoverability for GEO? Generative engine optimization. Since that's where search is originating now, this is becoming the challenge of our generation. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an electrician in the field and how generative agentic AI is starting to change how you do your work. First, give us a little bit of background on the type of company you work for and type of work you do.
Yeah, so I work for a pretty large company in Oregon, West Coast. At one point had thousands of employees, and I believe right now we have about 1,000. And so the use of generative AI and having the ability to find the material that we need quickly and efficiently is very important, when you're working for a company that's of that scale. Because if you're not having the things that you need, first, if you can't find the things that you need, or if you're not having those things show up as as they were what you thought that you were ordering. That's a very big problem.
So if you think about, like, why don't people just go to distributor websites to get the products that they need?
Yeah, so actually I have some notes here about some pain points that I have ran into when I am ordering materials. So I'm just going to walk through some of this real quick with you guys. So, finding material as a foreman, it's just one of what feels like 1,000 different tasks that I have to do on the job. And any time that I'm spending searching for and ordering material is unfortunately time away, that I'm not being productive on the job site. And so to be perfectly honest with you, when we have roughly a billable rate of about $140 an hour for a journeyman electrician, I'm really not all that concerned about comparing the small cost differences of materials between different distributors. My main concern is finding what I need quickly and easily, so that way I can then stop spending time, looking for and ordering material and getting back on the job site. And, again, for larger companies and larger projects, this is especially true, right? We want to make that process of finding and ordering material as quick and as easy as we can. So, right off the bat, as long as prices are reasonable, as long as they seem like it's a fair and good price, then the supply house that gives me the best overall customer experience, and again, to me, that means ease of finding what I need, and I can get it quickly, then that is the distributor that we're going to buy from. So again, getting back into to pain points that I've ran into, let me just talk through some of the things real quickly that I have found to be very useful when I am ordering materials, and then you can see that if companies or websites do not have these different features, how it can be an issue. So pain point number one, we're going to call this the search bar struggle. And so one of the biggest problems that I face is when I cannot find the actual material that I need on a company website from a distributor website, because I'm not typing in the exact correct search term that piece of material is listed as on the website. And, I'm sure many of you know that different pieces of material, different tools in the electrical trade, you can have one thing that goes by many, many different names. And so just an example of that, one of the tools that we use is called a non-contact voltage tester. And some different names that can go by is tick tracer, voltage tester, glow tip, glow stick, hot stick, chicken stick, voltage sniffer, capacitive voltage sensor, and it goes on and on.
So we can pause, everybody will repeat those.
Yeah. How about you guys repeat them? You taking notes?
So it's not natural language, right? You go on the distributor website, it's very much a seller-centric approach.
Yeah.
What we call it, you have to figure out and guess how we think about it. That's one of the big pivots of agentic, is that now we expect natural language. We expect to be able to query and return results where the agent has done the translation.
Exactly. Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is, there's been multiple times where I know that this supply house has the material that I need, but I can't for the life of me figure out exactly the term that I need to type in that's going to get that to pop up, so that way I can order it. And so really that is just half the battle right there.
Can't you just call these people?
Yeah, I mean, we
Why don't Gen Zers call people? They don't call their parents, let alone their supply house, right?
We'll text about this later, okay, David? Yeah, that's half of the battle right there, though, is just being able to find the material that we need. And so, we're going to be talking about this more, but that is a huge area of opportunity, in my opinion, to integrate AI into your website to make finding things more searchable.
Let's pause there for a second. So how often do you really want to log into 5 different distributor websites and meet 5 new AI agents?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Again, that's going to take time. And so the least amount of time that I have to spend looking through different websites and comparing costs and seeing, okay, this place has this place has that, that's just time spent away from the job. And
work stops when there's no material.
Yeah, work stops when there's no material. And I guess doubling down on this point is a lot of the times too, there's not great product information on these websites, right? Sometimes you'll have inaccurate product photos. Sometimes there's no model or part numbers, accurate descriptions or specs of the products that we need, cut sheets, catalogs.
What about pictures? I mean, honestly, we expect this, right? We all use Amazon. We get to see a picture
Yeah,
of the product. We get to see now videos of product before we click place order, right? That's a big block, right? If you get that cold, I call it the cold finger, you're about ready to order, but you don't have the exit criteria of having confidence that you're getting the right thing.
yeah,
I can't tell you how many manufacturers in this room, like now on the Trade Hounds app, we have Agentic AI. So we search for these products using natural language. The products come back, but the images are missing. The attributes are missing. Yep. And that means that users in the field are like, okay, I got to buy this product from somebody who's actually got their data in order.
exactly.
I think what I'd like to do now is pivot into Patrick and talk about data a little bit because, you know, frankly, in the agentic world, if your data isn't together, you're invisible. And in this world with, you know, half the workforce shifting over, the jump ball over market share, if you don't have your data act together, everything falls apart. You're invisible. You might as well just have that little wheel after you ask the question agentically, just keep spinning. There's going to come back with nothing. Patrick?
Yeah, you just spent a lot of time talking about problems we tried to solve 15 years ago, right? And going to the distributor's website, right? We have a tool called Crosscheck that's been around for a long time, where we went through the process of taking all these keywords, right, and saying how many different ways can you say fish tape? Okay, well, let's load that into the distributor ERP system so that then it's available and searchable on their e-commerce website. That's only as good as how many distributors are actually using that language because we send it to them. We have 30 different available fields for images in the connector. Again, it's only as good as the data we get from the manufacturers. We have the ability to have 360 images, videos, URLs. All these things are available within the connector, but it's only as good as the data you send us. And I think we spent a lot of time in this industry getting ready for e-commerce, right? I think that was a really big push for distributors to invest in solid e-commerce systems. And we thought, you know, this is the next wave of procurement within our industry. And it kind of came down to, well, we built shopping experiences for people sitting at a laptop, right? And how often is that a job site reality? And it took a really long time for us to get from the point, well, hey, I just like to go to the distributor's warehouse. I like to go to the counter. I like to hang out with my friend Joe, have a cup of coffee, and pick up my stuff, right? And we've gone past that. I think it also as job sites get a lot more competitive. Like you said, $140 an hour for your electricians to be on time. Well, you can't waste half a day for, you know, your guys to be gone hanging out at the counter, right? So that's gone out the window. So we have all these systems we spend a lot of money on for these distributors to have, you know, really solid e-commerce websites that try to create an Amazon-like experience without the data backing it up, right? To create a solid interface. But we've bypassed that entirely to now we're at a point where, you know, Gen Z wants to buy stuff on their phone, right? They want to be able to pick up their phone and say, hey, I need this part. Give me 6 quotes. I'm going to buy it tomorrow. We're going to buy it right now. I want to be able to pick it up. Show me where it's at. You know, as a millennial, that scares me. I feel like purchasing decisions have to be done on a laptop. Like we like the big screen, right? But the small screen decision making has overtaken our industry. And I don't know how well we are prepared for that, right? I don't think everyone in this room thinks that same way, that we need to have our data ready for mobile display and searchability. Product data itself is, you know, all I think about all day, every day, which is probably you guys think about it maybe once a year when you have to listen to me talk every once in a while. So the reality of where we're headed, you know, we have all this great data, but how are we getting in the hands and almost bypassing the distributor system and getting directly in the hands of the contractors? We saw this push really start maybe 3 to 4 years ago in HVAC, where, you know, venture capitalists started saying the HVAC industry is prime for mobile procurement apps, right? So you got a whole slew of these companies pop up overnight that are trying to say, hey, how can I get in the hands of an HVAC contractor to let them be able to make on-site purchasing decisions? And it was only a matter of time before this rolled into electrical. And I think that's the future we're running into right now, is making sure that your product data is up and available. And if you're not sending your data, it's not getting harmonized. It's not getting out into the distributors' ecosystems in a way that it's easily searchable.
I think one of the things that made our relationship with NEMA so important was with this Buy America, Build America, Buy America, Made in America. A lot of manufacturers now, and you're in this room, are going through the journey of certifying your products, but until you're visible downstream at the point of need, all of that work that you did is basically for no good purpose. So the buyers in the office, the people in the field need to be able to know whether they're buying BUBA compliant materials. And the certification process is the first step, but it's not the last step. And so we're working with IDEA to also be able to make sure that when we surface information during the buyer journey, that's visible, and therefore you're getting the return on investment that you've made, not only in making things in America, but going through the certification. So I'd like to pivot a little bit towards Maddie and talk a little bit about how the new workforce that she's in front of every day is actually changing the terms of work and what that means for companies like Siemens, who she works for.
Yeah, thank you, David. One thing that's important to us at Siemens is getting in front of that next generation electrician or distributorship employee. And to do that, to get in front of them, we need to go to where their eyes are. So working with trade hounds and really making sure we have alignment with social media influencers, having someone else other than Siemens take our message to the market. One thing my team really likes to focus on is we can't be the hero of the story because then there is no room for the customer. So allowing someone else to deliver that message, building that integrity through social media relationships, which that next generation tends to value more than a relationship with the business itself. Another thing we're doing is really integrating digital technologies for training. So as David, you mentioned 50% of the workforce is going to be retiring. If you look at the average age of electrician, depending on your data source, you're going to range anywhere from 42 to 51. How do we capture that tenure knowledge and then instill it in that next generation in a way that they are going to be susceptible to receiving it? So I don't know if you can see, you can see it on the screen right now. We have a big investment within XR development, AI tools. Dave, you mentioned agentic search, trying to make sure we are at the forefront of these digital technologies so that we can speak with that next generation consumer.
I think one of the gaps that people aren't necessarily aware of is not only is there a generational shift going on, that implies a massive knowledge transfer gap. That is, there's people leaving who knew the names of the products, who knew the applications of the products, who knew when to use or not use products. There's a whole generation of people who are coming in, they're learning for the first time at high speed because of how fast, the macro picture is pushing for more work. They're learning at high speed how to do work. And so one of the challenges now is how do we leverage technology to transfer knowledge quickly? And I think this whole journey that Siemens has been working on to really take virtual reality, augmented reality, and be able to drive that into workforce training is making a big difference.
There's a lot of hot topics around the augmented reality. Extended reality is really where we focus. So it's taking a training course and allowing the user to decide, do they want to experience that virtually in a fully immersive environment? Or as you see here on the screen, spatial computing. So using an Apple Vision Pro device, having 100% pass-through space, and layering your 3D animation right next to your actual product installation or assembly. This technology alone, the spatial computing that you're seeing now, we did a study. Deloitte was the one carrying out the research, and we showed common errors throughout a 12-week course reduced from 90% to 0. The level of engagement increased to 50%, and then the level of retention of knowledge increased by 70% for students partaking in this course. So really giving them the ability to build the muscle memory in a risk-free environment in a way that they're familiar with and happy to engage with. We're looking at digital natives here, right? People that grew up with iPads or a smartphone versus maybe someone that maybe categorized as a digital nomad, right? So they were already in their career, and then the technology came and met them. We've seen great results, and we're happy to do the research with trade hounds to share it and put it in front of.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the whole change in how the Gen Zers actually get information. So a lot of people are used to, obviously, the world of Google search, which is vanishing, generally speaking. But let's talk a little bit about the social side of it. Historically, manufacturers were able to produce content. They had big video production teams. They had scripting. They had very, I would call it, seller-centric approaches to creating content. Talk a little bit about how the new generation actually gains preference and makes buying decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would call this peer-to-peer marketing, right? And the rise in peer-to-peer marketing is huge. It's happening everywhere. And I truly believe that it's the companies that embrace this change of, embracing peer-to-peer marketing, like trade hounds and like Siemens, are really going to be the companies that come out on top. And the reality is that electricians, we are not just doing product research on Google anymore. Most of the product research that we're doing is happening on social media. Okay, so it's happening on YouTube, trade hounds, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all those different places. And I think there's some really good reasons for that. So the first reason is, as much as we don't want to admit it, it's where we're already spending a significant amount of time. And so social media is great for us electricians to connect with other electricians and also just gain more knowledge about the electrical industry. At least that's the excuse, that I tell myself before I inevitably end up doom scrolling and seeing videos of raccoons jumping on a trampoline. Don't know how I get there, but I get there. But the point is that, electricians are spending their time on social media. And so David said this earlier, and I think this is very true, is if you are not visible on social media, if you're not being seen and talked about, then you're invisible, and you don't want that.
I think one thing that's so interesting about that, though, is the emergence of what I call just-in-time learning. A lot of manufacturers over the years have made content that is what I call just-in-case learning, which is, if you think about, how many of you have done lunch and learns where you go out to your distributor branches and basically show them how things work? That's what I call just-in-case learning, right? There's no moment of need when you're teaching. You're hoping that at the moment of need, they don't fall down the forgetting curve and actually know how to do the thing that you've trained them how to do. What's shifting now in new media is what we call just-in-time training, and that's short, very task-focused content.
Yes.
It's like, when was the last time that you actually open an instruction manual to learn how to do something? You don't do that anymore. You search for short, on-point content that shows you how to do things. If your content isn't discoverable, now with Agentic, if you're serving people back instruction manuals, you're not serving the right content. And Agentic will deprioritize that. You'll get basically excluded. You have to have content that's on point. Talk about how people are actually learning in the field with this knowledge gap, right? They're getting thrown into situations where they don't necessarily, their training didn't cover that thing that they have to learn. Tell us how they solve that problem today.
Yeah, well, really, the solution to that problem, I think, is hugely with social media and with content creators that are spending time, that are sharing the knowledge that they have learned from their years of being in the industry, and making content and putting that out for other people to discover and learn from. And it's not even just about teaching each other different tips and tricks and knowledge about the trade, but it's also about showing new products and new tools that the industry has to offer. Just recently, this was about a month ago. So I just want to say too, this isn't just limited to Gen Z or millennials. I think this is everybody. Everybody's gravitating towards social media to learn these different things. And so my coworker Mark, he's in his early 50s, and he was just recently looking to buy a tool backpack. And so we were in the job site trailer, and so what he did is rather than going to Google, he immediately went straight to YouTube, typed in the backpack that he wanted. And what he did next actually really fascinated me because I realized that I subconsciously do the same thing. He started clicking on videos, and then as soon as he thought to himself, oh, this person's not actually a real electrician, or this person doesn't seem like they actually work out in the field much, or that they have actually used this thing out in the field, he would swipe away from that video and find a new one because he wanted to know that the person that was, talking about this backpack actually, one, knew what they were doing, that they were actually an electrician working out in the field, and that they've actually had experience working with it. And so I think we just want to know that when we're looking to buy tools and materials and things like that, we don't just always want a polished, ad from the actual brand themselves. We want to see real world experience from our peers, and that we trust their opinions.
I think, if we talk about how to power sales with agentic AI, part of the challenge is you have to have trusted sources.
Yeah.
So we've all used generative tools and come back with hallucinations.
Yep.
Obviously, that's a significant issue, although I frankly think it's an overhyped issue. The big question is, how do we make sure that we have trusted data? And so one of the things that we've been doing at TradeHounds is making sure we work with approved data sets, making sure that we're working with manufacturer-approved data, distributor-approved inventory, distributor-approved catalogs to be able to make sure that the results are trusted. And just thinking through that a little bit more, Patrick, can you talk a little bit about the shifting needs in terms of the immediacy of data as opposed to just the accuracy of data?
Yeah, I think immediacy is important, right? We're competing more and more in our industry with private equity and venture capitalists coming out building tools, right? And where are they getting your data? Well, they're scraping it off your website. How good is your data on your website? Probably not that great. How good is the data on the distributor's website? Well, that's probably locked behind a login, right? So realistically, the accuracy of the data needs to get directly into the hands of the products that are being developed, and optimizing the data for those, as talked about earlier, optimizing the data for a mobile experience is pretty critical. We work really hard at IDEA to make sure that we're evolving our fields to be more in line with how the world is really procuring. We talked about the Buy America fields. As we've gone through all the tariffs, we've added multiple country of origin fields. So we can have percentage of origin fields. All the things that come up critically, we try to quickly adapt and add and put as part of our product data ecosystem. I don't think we're going to run into a world where manufacturers can afford to not have incredibly accurate product data anymore.
And complete
product data, right? And how do you have the most complete product data in the hands of the people that are actually using it, right? Just talk about bypassing the traditional purchasing experience and going directly into the hands, in an app in the hands of a user. How approved are those apps, right? Where are they getting their data? Do we know that it's accurate? You talked about earlier, making sure you order something and you get the thing you actually ordered, right? How many different ways can you name something? All these things are driving behavior. We want to make sure that we're driving the appropriate behavior so that people are not making mistakes on a job site that potentially could be, cataclysmic to the project, but also fatal at times, right?
Yeah.
So there's a high risk of making sure that you all are thinking about this in the future. I don't know how accurately are your spec sheets. At IDEA, we'll see, we get a spec sheet from you all, and then we get your product data, and they don't match.
Yeah,
that can't be anymore, right?
And the choices that each manufacturer makes, it's not only their own choices, but it's also their channel partners, right? This is where the rubber hits the road in the electrical industry. If the distributor channel doesn't have data integration, if their catalogs aren't integrated, if there aren't API connectivity, that's slowing down the pace of work in the industry. People are making mistakes. People are thinking things are in stock that aren't in stock. They're getting the wrong products. They're getting at the wrong time, at the wrong place. So channel integration is really the next big wave. First is getting your own house in order, having the right data, making sure it's real time. And then second is making sure your channel partners are there, because without the channel partners, this is where all the revenue slips. It's like a leaky bucket. And right now the search experience for users is coming down to how well manufacturers have marshaled their channel partners. I did want to share with you in some of the next slides just how this looks for a user going through agentic AI on the TradeHounds app. So we have a variety of different ways that people look for product. Again, it's all natural language, so people search for it using whatever words they want. They can also snap pictures of things if they have to replace like for like. Those pictures then lead to real-time point of truth around where in a geography product is available right now. Interestingly, for all the people out there who have salespeople, you keep telling them how price sensitive their customers are. Not really true. We've surveyed our users. Number one criteria, in-stock availability.
Yep.
Not like it's supposed to be in stock, but it's known to be in stock. That's the API call. Secondly, the proximity to the point of need. Geolocation is critical. Time is money. You get into South Florida, the highways are stacked up with traffic most of the business day. The farther away the product is, the longer the work stoppage is. And so people need to be able to see, and this is why the real-time geolocation of product is critical. About 30 to 40% of construction material is, I need it right away. There's something missing that's preventing work from getting completed. So being able to see in real time, where is this product? It's not about, what's your price on this? That's not the question most of the time. Yes, there's buyers sitting back at the office who are, going through RFQs and trying to review all of that. A big chunk of material is just, where is it now? So AI image search is really important, making sure, again, if you don't have images, what is the generative AI going to do? It's going to come up back, not with your product, it's going to come back, it's not going to fail all the time, it's going to come back with somebody else's product. It's going to find that like for like. And by the way, now with attribute-based searching, it can find the products cross-reference to yours when you don't have the data. So it's going to be able to find out, okay, these are the same capacity, these are the same dimensions, the same blah, 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 blah. And it's going to find another manufacturer's product where those attributes are present. And most importantly, it can do that image match.
Can I add?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's also, we've spent a lot of time building cross-references. That's a huge part of what we do. But we've seen with agentic AI systems that it's not only going to do that, but it's also going to research your brand and say, these are your specific branded attributes that you say, hey, I make this product, it does this. It's going to say, okay, that is this manufacturer's marketing term for this comparative marketing term from another manufacturer, which is like, that used to be that was energy, right? You're branded saying, hey, I make this, I call it this. It matters because I say it matters. That's going away. Because the AI tools will say, well, realistically, it's still rated for this, this, and this, and this is rated for this, this, and this. And that comes like that, right? Whereas that used to be us building these large databases of crosses. All that's out the window.
And we get that automatically now in the TradeHounds app. So as soon as somebody has a request for a product, we see how the supply house responds to it. We see what is accepted, what's not accepted. We record those answers. So anytime somebody's asking for product 1, 2, 3, 4, and we come back with a different product and they accept it, we now have what we call a substitutability score. So those substitutability scores are being created through the app. And we'll talk in a little bit more about the data harvesting of all of this, which the data harvesting is immense. But the most important thing to mention here, everybody got tired of hunting and pecking through catalogs, right? The old approach, I call it the Google approach, to finding what you need to do your work was going through by product category, through these drill downs. And you can imagine in a mobile environment with cell phone connectivity always in question, how much time is wasted just trying to do that. That's not the GEO. That's not the agentic world. In the agentic world, let's go to the next slide. You speak what you need. It's like a microphone. Any of you who are old enough probably remember Nextel when it was like a walkie-talkie and you just had to talk into it. That's the new world of agentic. You speak what you need. The AI has already ingested all of these arcane terms that Steve was talking about. It's already heard those terms before and it's able to actually create a bill of materials. So AI bomb is the next thing that we're putting into the Trade Hounds app. A single point of navigation. There's no 6 different distributor websites. It's simply navigating at that level. Maddie, talk a little bit about how important agentic is in terms of cutting through the clutter of the old way of doing things.
For us, it's really important. One of the things that we've focused on, we recently launched an application in January of this year called Numa, and the goal there is powered by generative AI. So I think one thing you've captured is not only is having correct data important, but also having a way to capture what synthetic data you should supplement your technical catalog with is just of the same importance. So with that, we're capturing keywords, we're capturing different personas in industry, different applications, verticals, what have you, where products may have preference. And doing so allows us to then market more effectively to our targeted customer bases, because we now understand not only are you interested in switchboards or switchgear, but we understand what type of role you may have at your company. We understand what your buying process looks like, and we understand maybe what types of projects you work on. So we can then go and recommend further solutions, whether it's additional product or, like we talked earlier, some 3D installation instruction set so that your team can be more efficient for whether it's the installation or the maintenance for the project.
And the most important screenshot on this slide is actually the last one. It doesn't do any good to get your manufacturing house in order if your channel partners aren't integrated. So what you're seeing here is a progression from speaking what you need, natural language, right? The machine is doing the hard work of translating slang and different manufacturer catalogs into the right bill of materials. Once you've got the bill of materials, you can see on the 4th screen there's a human in the loop. This is important, right? We know that AI is capable of making mistakes. The human is checking how that voice was translated into different quantities, how it was translated into different part numbers. Some of them require tapping to be able to dial them in the right way or sign off on them. But the last step is where revenue comes. If you don't master the last step, it's 2 things. It's frustrating to Stephen, it's frustrating to your distributors, and it's frustrating to your shareholders. One of the best ways for companies to get started with being present with the new generation is what we call the company accounts. So we're working now with manufacturers to make sure that they're discoverable on the app, being able to actually set up, this is like your storefront, this is where your products are available, you're able to actually start to bring on your channel partners, be able to build this connective tissue in the marketplace. This is where you're going to be able to finally start to showcase what you're doing. Obviously, most companies are now starting to have social media as an important part. With hundreds of thousands of users, having your social game up to where it's supposed to be is critical. Maddie, talk a little bit about the social side of this and how social is becoming important to a brand like Siemens.
One thing that's been really pivotal for us, and I'm smiling as I'm looking at this, the feedback we're able to receive from this user base. So whether someone's a follower or not, they may see our content, they may engage with a giveaway that we're going to do on the Trade Hounds app, or a contest that we're doing. So the data that we're able to capture, whether it's a qualitative survey or a quantitative survey, goes directly to our marketing teams. It can go to our R&D teams, our product development side, and really support what our next steps are going to be. But it also lets us get in touch with that next generation, not even next generation. I think you mentioned, your colleague that is in his 50s using social media as well. So having discussions on a day-to-day with our actual end user, understanding what their challenges may be, or getting user-generated content submitted to the application.
Surveys.
So that's a huge one. We can see in the field where our product is being installed and how these guys actually highlight their work. I think that these are some survey results that we did as well, just to kind of showcase the level of feedback that we get.
We call this the going from blind product development to scaled user feedback. So when you have hundreds of thousands of users, we can put out surveys. If you're trying to answer very specific, multi-million-dollar questions about which problem should you solve. And so being able to validate those theses with real users out in the field and be able to know what types of users are they? Are they resi, commercial, industrial? What types of projects are they working on? Companies are investing millions. We've heard recently billions of dollars in creating factories to build things. The question is, what will they build? And how will they know whether they're building the right things? Part of it is really getting into the weeds with, are we actually dialed into where the market's going? So workforce development and market research, being able to understand where the real users are, is how you start to actually drive with a windshield on your car, right? Where you finally get to see where you're going and be able to make a difference. So now I think we're going to turn to some question and answer, and put up a QR code for people to be able to scan and see questions. And any last comments, Stephen, before we get into the questions?
Yeah, I guess maybe just one more thing that I would say is, my perspective here is, I have a social media that I've used to help promote, a lot of different brands and to help spread awareness about the electrical trade. And I guess I just want to say, don't be afraid to use different social media content creators in order to help, promote your products and your services, because really, we've already done that heavy lifting for you, right? A lot of work goes into growing those followings, and it's not just the followings and the organic reach, but it's also the trust that we build with our audiences. And so, I'm not saying, hey, go with me, but in general, just content creators, I think that it's a very big missed opportunity these days. And so capitalize on it because it's there. The heavy lifting has already been done.
Yeah, there was one other comment as we're waiting for questions to come in. One of the big opportunities for manufacturers is around new product launches. And you just think about the amount of money that goes into the engineering of product, the manufacturing of product, the staging, pre-positioning of product. And then the question becomes, does anybody know it's there? And if it's a pull-driven product where the field needs to know about it, and you haven't done that kind of connect it to the next generation of users, the pull isn't there. And then you're left with a push strategy, which is not something the Gen Zers are particularly fond of. Matt, you want to talk a little bit about like the in-hab launch strategy? And
Absolutely. You do have to have an organic approach today. And it's funny, you say you do all this work and then who knows it's there. Well, they might if they have a login. And then if they have a login, they might if they remember their password. That's one of my biggest struggles. I think we all have 20 plus logins today. So leveraging this channel, social media, wherever it may be, whether it's Trade Hounds, LinkedIn, if it's something that's more prevalent with the social side, Instagram, TikTok, and really working with influencers, viewing influencers as a valuable partner, because that's what they are. It can do a lot for your business from an organic standpoint. So just some insight onto the cost of that. If you're doing a traditional marketing effort that you may had a media company work with you with, and then you're going through a publication channel that's a bit more traditional, you could spend upwards of $30,000 to $50,000 on one piece, versus even an organic post that's homegrown through social media can cost you less than $50, right? Social media influencers obviously can add on to that, but comparatively, the value you will get from this type of marketing, the feedback, the engagement, the results, it's imperative, I think, that we all engage with it.
We have another question on how do you measure ROI on social media investment? I mean, this is one of the most important attributes. So yes, there are ROI measuring tools, and they're classic metrics that you can get, like the number of impressions, the number of comments, the number of likes. There's a whole bunch of those. What's different on a platform like Trade Hounds when the distributors are integrated is we can directly track the progression from the engagement with the content to the request for a quote to the actual order of the product. And so that's what we call the closed loop marketing system. That's rare. You can't get that on traditional social platforms because they're not commerce enabled in that way. We have another question, which is what type of content, this one was for Steven, should manufacturers share on social media that electricians want to see?
Yeah, so I think in general, whether you are a manufacturer or even just another content creator, I think the type of content that you really want to focus on getting out is content that is giving value to your audience, right? Because whatever that means for you, in my case, for me, giving value to my audience means that I'm making content that is teaching them a helpful tip or trick that's going to make their job out in the field faster. And so what I have really come to realize is if you're constantly putting up posts that are really giving value to your audience, then somebody's not going to want to risk the opportunity or risk missing your next post. So they're going to follow you and they're going to start engaging with your content. And so just have that mindset. Don't necessarily focus on showing off the coolest feature of whatever it is that your tool is, unless that is.
We call that feature dumping.
Yeah. Focus on teaching, focus on giving value, because those are the kinds of posts that people share the most in the way that the algorithm works. It's all, AI is integrated into all this. The way the algorithm works is if people are sharing posts and interacting with it, then that is just going to boost its overall performance. And it's typically that value-driven content that does that.
We have another question, which is how do we have confidence in the data that's behind the answers that we get? I'll turn that over to Patrick. The importance of having trusted sources, having industry certification, having what generative AI does is it looks for not just broad, cross sections of data, but most trusted data. And most trusted data in commerce means having real supply links. Talk about the importance of having the right data set feeding the search tools.
Well, I mean, that's why this industry founded IDEA, right? Is to answer that question. We asked that question in 1997, right? When we founded IDEA is how do we make sure that we have trusted data sources for manufacturers syndicating to distributors? And I think that it's still the same, right? You have IDEA as a central governance body for product data, and we syndicate out through distribution, right? And that's how you can trust that the data is accurate, right? We have our harmonized data model, which is taking the 200 ways that this industry decided to say the word voltage and turning it just into the single same letter V, right? So that it's accurate, it's searchable, it's able to be pushed up through agentic systems, and it's being syndicated out into the appropriate channels. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's trust the industry vetted ecosystem for data that's been created through IDEA. Because the other option, again, is it's being scraped by a third party that's not from industry, that doesn't understand, that's just throwing bad data out into the world.
We have another question. If immediacy and convenience of product availability is of higher priority than pricing, how does this square up against large e-commerce players? I think this is so important in our industry because the pricing, there's been so much confusion about pricing over the years in terms of the role that pricing plays in buyer decision making. What we're seeing today is that the people who solve productivity problems are outperforming those who are discounters. And yes, there will always be large projects that are price driven. There will always be purchasing scenarios where the lowest bid wins. But what we're also seeing is, in our experience, 30 to 50% of material being bought in the industry is really about quality. It's about in-stock availability, being the first to get it. First to respond, honestly, is one of the most important, which is another piece of market data manufacturers desperately need, is to know how responsive is their channel to the request for information. But broadly speaking, the big generic marketplaces, we don't see, aside from very standardized, commoditized products, as being able to meet the needs of this marketplace. What was the name of the app that Siemens launched this year?
Oh, thank you. It's called Numa. The reason why we took that name is as one of my roles at Siemens is managing the Siemens Educates America program, connecting with local training centers, whether that's JATC, an IEC chapter, a trade school or a technical college. And one thing we found is, again, if Siemens is the hero of the story, there's no room for anyone else. So calling the application NUMA allows these programs to engage with us and use the application. And it also supports them in receiving grant funding to procure a license if they want to access at a larger scale.
One of the last questions I think we have time for, if videos are used instead of installation manuals, how do you ensure things are safely installed? This is one of those threading the needle types of problems. We've been working on this with Siemens and other companies to make sure that when we have user-generated content that it goes through proper reviews. It has to be reviewed for safety, for accuracy. So you don't want to lose the authenticity of it, but it also needs to go through that extra step of vetting. So I think that's all we have time for. I want to thank all of our panelists for a great conversation, and thank you for listening. Thank you.